This is Nightline and I'm Muhammed Ahmad Hamdan. News making the headlines. Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri sworn in as 9th Prime Minister. And latest SOPs for states under Phase 1 of NRP released. Newly sworn-in Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob is to address the nation on Sunday. He said this when thanking the Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah for consenting to his appointment as the nation's 9th Prime Minister.
Datuk Sri, ulas sikit, Datuk Sri. Tanya Datuk Sri, ulas sikit, Datuk Sri.
Okey, terima kasih. Saya bersyukur kepada Allah atas izin Allah jugalah saya mendapat dilantik sebagai Perdana Menteri. Tahu. Dan saya juga ingin menjunjung kasih kepada Kuasa Yang Maha Mulia Yang di-Pertuan Agong kerana memperkenankan pelantikan saya. Dan saya juga ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada rakan-rakan ahli-ahli Parlimen yang memberikan sokongan kepada saya sehingga saya berjaya mendapat 114 sokongan, ya, dan tentu saja terima kasih kepada ketua-ketua parti. InsyaAllah untuk rakyat saya akan membuat press statement besok. Jadi saya akan address the nation besok. Ya, semua hari ini untuk syukur dan ucap terima kasih. Ya.
Tanya Datuk Sri.
Terima kasih banyak. Tanya. Ya. Terima kasih kepada PN, PAS, GPS, ya. Bebas pun ada yang mendukung saya. Ucap terima kasih kepada semua kepada mereka. Ya. Okey. Datuk Sri, ya, kepada Presiden UMNO dan juga MC UMNO yang menyokong pelantikan saya. Semua sekali lah, semua. Satu, PAS, GPS, everybody. Ya. Okey.
Datuk Sri tanya.
Terima kasih banyak. Terima kasih.
Earlier, the UMNO Vice President took his oath of office as Malaysia's 9th Prime Minister before Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah. The ceremony was held at Istana Negara on Saturday afternoon. It was 2:28 p.m. that Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri was sworn in as the Prime Minister. The ceremony, which involved the conferment of the instrument of appointment and taking the oath of office and allegiance, as well as the oath of secrecy as the Prime Minister, was held at the Balai Singgasana Kecil. The ceremony was also attended by Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Hajah Azizah Aminah Maimunah Iskandaria. Al-Sultan Abdullah consented to the appointment as Prime Minister in accordance with the Federal Constitution.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wallahi wabillahi watallahi. Saya Ismail Sabri bin Yaakob setelah dilantik memegang jawatan seorang Perdana Menteri dengan sesungguhnya bersumpah bahawa saya akan dengan jujur menunaikan kewajipan-kewajipan jawatan itu dengan segala daya upaya saya, bahawa saya akan menumpahkan taat setia yang sebenarnya kepada Malaysia dan akan memelihara, melindungi dan mempertahankan perlembagaannya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wallahi wabillahi watallahi. Saya Ismail Sabri bin Yaakob dengan sesungguhnya bersumpah bahawa saya tidak akan memberitahu atau menzahirkan kepada mana-mana orang, sama ada secara langsung atau secara tidak langsung, apa-apa perkara yang dibawa untuk pertimbangan saya atau yang akan saya ketahui sebagai seorang Perdana Menteri kecuali sebagaimana yang mungkin dikehendaki untuk menunaikan dengan sewajarnya kewajipan-kewajipan saya sebagai yang demikian atau sebagaimana yang mungkin dibenarkan dengan khas oleh Yang di-Pertuan Agong.
After taking his oath of office, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri then signed the document. It was witnessed by Chief Secretary to the Government, Tan Sri Muhammad Zuki Ali, and Chief Justice Tun Tengku Maimun Tuan Mat. Also present were Dewan Negara President Tan Sri Dr. Rais Yatim, Dewan Rakyat Speaker Dato' Azhar Azizan Harun, and UMNO President Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi. Joining them were former Parti Pribumi Bersatu Malaysia Bersatu President Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, past President Datuk Sri Abdul Hadi Awang, Parti Bersatu Sabah PBS President Datuk Sri Dr. Maximus Ongkili, and Gabungan Parti Sarawak GPS Chairman Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari Tun Openg. Saturday's ceremony ended with the reading of the Doa led by Datuk Dr. Luqman Abdullah. The appointment of the Bara Member of Parliament was made following the resignation of Tan Sri Muhyiddin on August 16th after failing to command majority support of the parliamentary members after 15 UMNO MPs withdrew their support for Perikatan Nasional. A new Prime Minister has been appointed and many, especially Malaysians at large, look forward to moving in a positive direction, especially after a bout of political turmoil. Joining us live now is geostrategist Azmi Hassan. Now, how can Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri bring Malaysians together, including political opponents? Dr. Azmi.
Muhammad, it's good to hear that the Prime Minister will address the nation today, on Sunday. At least the people can know the direction of his government, his vision, and also maybe the color of his cabinet. But again, to answer your question, Muhammad, to please the nation, especially the people, I think that's the easy part. Because we, the people, have been tolerating the politician, the turmoil that they created, and the changing of Prime Minister without going to the election. I think we tolerated it. So that's the easy part, to please the people. But the harder part is how to convince the politician to stop politicking. Because GE15 is not that long, most probably 1.5 years or 2 years' time. So the difficult part is, Muhammad, how to please this politician so that they are less politicking and concentrate on the matter, which is the pandemic, Muhammad.
Right. Now, the appointment of a new Prime Minister is over. All eyes are now on the formation of his new cabinet. Many would want to know who's in and who's out. How do you think Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri will decide in picking his cabinet members? Is there a likelihood of maintaining the same faces from the previous administration? Or can we expect him to cut down, especially cut down, on the number of ministers?
I think on the later part, to cut down the number of ministers, I'm sure it'll be done. It won't be as excessive as the previous government. I think it's around 70 plus ministers, because the king has said that the king want the government to concentrate on the pandemic. So the establishment of portfolios and cabinet ministers should be on ministries that are deal directly with the pandemic. So I think the cutting down of the number of cabinet ministers also, I think that will be the priority. Who's in, who's out, is all up to Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri as the Prime Minister. But as you know, Muhammad, as the people already aware, there are some pushback or some suggestion by the political parties who should be in the cabinet. I think that's the challenge that Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri face. Not about the people, but about the politician himself, Muhammad.
Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri is expected to allow a confidence vote in the Dewan Rakyat as required by the King as a formality. Now, with such a vote taking place, it would definitely be something that is required to put on his firm majority parliamentary backing. With it being a significant event, do you expect this to be done once Parliament reconvenes early next month?
Yes, I'm confident that Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri will put forward a confidence vote. Maybe the Parliament is opening on the September 6th, maybe on the second day of the sitting. I think that's the best chance to quell any fear that he doesn't have any majority because he was elected by statutory declaration. We have no idea who's supporting who is not supporting who. So I think Datuk Ismail Sabri, I think we learn from past mistakes. I think the past mistakes that not allowing the vote of confidence or the vote of non-confidence. So yes, Muhammad, I think that's a good, I think somehow or other that can cool down, settle down, because as we know right now, with 114 votes through statutory declaration, is not that strong enough. So to put it in Parliament, in Dewan Rakyat, is a good move by the Prime Minister.
Right, thank you, Dr. Azmi. Moving on, the newly sworn-in Prime Minister's #1 priority is to combat the pandemic and support the economic recovery. Bank Islam's chief economist Muhammad Afzanizam Abdul Rashid also said that he does not expect to see much changes to the existing policies, and for the fiscal policy in particular to be very much likely to remain expansionary.
To some degree, the level of uncertainties have actually reduced somewhat because we are looking at the same coalition running the government, and therefore, like I said previously, in terms of the approach on the economics stimulus and the assistance will probably more or less the same, whereby it will continue to remain expansionary in respect to a fiscal policy stance, and therefore in respect to government debt level, in respect the debt ceiling, fiscal deficits, I think it will continue to remain supportive in terms of the overall economic conditions, because at the moment it's very important, it's quite critical for the government to continue to roll out or dish out further assistance, as we know that critical sectors like micro SMEs, these are the vulnerable sectors that continue to be plagued by the disease, by the pandemic. Yes, we are seeing a ray of light at the moment, but I think the fiscal policy especially will continue to be expansionary going forward.
Muhammad Afzanizam also said that by reopening businesses once the nation achieves herd immunity, the new government will be able to boost investor confidence.
The previous government has indicated that in the month of October, there will be further reopening of the economy as the vaccination program has proceeded quite well. I think if you look at the vaccination program, especially for the adults, I think it has reached more than 50%. So I think we should be able to reopen the economy towards during the Q4 2021. So when you are having a more reopening of the economy to occur in a more convincing way, then you could see that these small businesses would be able to record sales. Because at the end of the day, it's about, for businesses especially, is to make sales to happen. All this assistance is about giving, reducing or mitigating the impact in terms of the operational cost. But what matters to businesses is to record their sales. So reopening of the economy holds the key in respect to, to have a significant impact in terms of the economic recovery. So I believe the priorities will be focused on the reopening of the economy for this new government.
After the break, excavator driver killed in mishap at PJ construction site.
거기 누가 없어요. 여기가 어딘지 아세요?
당신들 이게 뭔지는 알고 써먹는 거야?
괜찮으세요? 아저씨!
The National Security Council has released the latest standard operating procedures for dine-ins following the announcement on additional social and economic freedoms for states under Phase 1 of the National Recovery Program. In the latest SOPs, premises offering dining-in services can only allow individuals who have been fully vaccinated, including a mandatory notice posted on their premises' entrance denoting the aforementioned condition for entry. The NSC also said only workers who have received a complete vaccination and are not symptomatic are allowed to work, with overall vaccination status determining the capacity of workers allowed at one time. Only premises whose workers are at least 80% vaccinated are allowed to operate at full capacity. For premises whose workers are at least 40% vaccinated, they are allowed to operate at 60% capacity. Meanwhile, premises whose workers are at least 60% vaccinated are allowed to operate at 80% capacity. It also said individuals who have completed their vaccination are allowed to bring their children aged 17 and below for dine-in purposes by adhering to general health protocols. In other news, the National Security Council has removed the 10-kilometre travel limit previously attached to the movement of individuals in states under Phase 1 of the National Recovery Plan. While cross-district and cross-state travels are still not allowed in Phase 1 states, except for certain exceptions for fully vaccinated individuals, the 10-kilometre limit is no longer part of the standard operating procedures. In an updated SOP released by the NSC for Phase 1 states, for those who have yet to complete their vaccination, 2 persons representing a household may travel to obtain food supply, medicine and basic necessities with the 10 kilometers travel cap removed. A maximum of 3 persons, including patients, are also allowed to go out for healthcare services, screening tests or vaccination, also with the 10 kilometers travel cap removed. Meanwhile, the 10 kilometers travel cap is also removed for those who have completed their vaccination, with a slight relaxation on the number of persons, in which it would depend on the capacity of the vehicles they were travelling in. The criteria for fully vaccinated individuals are those who have completed 14 days after receiving the second dose of the vaccines for Pfizer, AstraZeneca and Sinovac, and 28 days for single-dose vaccines, namely Johnson & Johnson and CanSino. The Department of Mineral and Geoscience Malaysia JMG has detected at least 4 landslides that had occurred on the slopes of Gunung Jerai following the water surge phenomenon on Wednesday. JMG Geological Engineering Branch Head Dr. Firdaus Ahmad said the landslips were detected based on the initial observation of the Geology Department Disaster Task Force, which was assigned to identify the causes of the incident, apart from evaluating the risks. Dr. Firdaus said the type of rocks found in the mountain, which comprised of sandstone, granite and quartzite, could have also contributed to the occurrence. However, he said investigations and detailed study are required to identify the actual situation of the mountain before the department could come to a conclusion.
Batuan tu dia mudah, bila kena air dia mudah terlerai, dan disebabkan oleh kita di kawasan Khatulistiwa, proses peluluhawaan batuan untuk menjadi tanah itu sangat tinggi. Jadi kebanyakan yang turun ni adalah tanah batuan yang telah terlalu menjadi tanah. Dan juga batuan-batuan kecil-kecil yang mempunyai retakan yang sangat tinggi. Itu adalah kawasan-kawasan yang mempunyai potensi atau mempunyai ancaman tanah runtuh sebenarnya.
He said this when met by reporters at Titi Hayun on Saturday. He said based on mapping, The department would identify the areas which such incidents had occurred and other areas which pose risk of a geological disaster during water surge phenomenon. So far, the flood tragedy caused by the water surge phenomenon from Gunung Jerai on Wednesday afternoon took 4 lives, while 2 are still missing. The disaster also affected the surrounding areas of the mountain, apart from Kuala Muda district. An excavator driver was killed after being crushed by a collapsed wall at a construction site near Flora Damansara in Damansara Perdana. The Selangor Fire and Rescue Department received a distress call at around noon on Saturday, and an 8-member team from the Damansara Fire and Rescue Station was dispatched to the location. Arrival at the site, firefighters were informed that a 32-year-old Bangladeshi had been crushed due to a collapsed wall and was unconscious. Firefighters used a crane in carrying out rescue operations, and the body of the victim, who was trapped under the rubble, was eventually extricated. Initial checks revealed part of the wall had collapsed on the driver and the vehicle. The cause of the incident is still under investigation. Still to come on Nightline, hundreds arrested as Australia reports record COVID-19 cases.
거기 누가 없어요. 여기가 어딘지 아세요?
얘들아, 뭐 어쩌자는 거야? 당신들 이게 뭔지는 알고 써먹는 거야?
괜찮으세요? 아저씨.
Welcome back. Taliban co-founder Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar arrived in Kabul on Saturday for talks on establishing a new inclusive government in Afghanistan. Other senior Taliban leaders seen in the capital in recent days include Khalil Haqqani, one of America's most wanted terrorists with a $5 million bounty on his head. Baradar arrived in Afghanistan last Tuesday from Qatar, choosing to touch down in the country's second biggest city, Kandahar, the Taliban's spiritual birthplace. Within hours of his return, the group announced its rule would be different this time. The Taliban have said they want this iteration of their government to be inclusive, but have given few details of who it would include. Arrested in Pakistan in 2010, Baradar was in custody until pressure from the United States saw him freed in 2018 and relocated to Qatar. He was appointed head of the Taliban's political office in Doha, where he oversaw the signing of the agreement that led to the agreement for US forces to withdraw and end their 20-year campaign. Australian police arrested hundreds of anti-lockdown protesters in Melbourne and Sydney on Saturday as the country saw its highest single-day rise in COVID-19 cases. Mounted police used pepper spray in Melbourne to break up crowds of more than 4,000, surging toward police lines, while smaller groups of protesters were prevented from congregating in Sydney by a large contingent of riot police. Victoria State Police said that they arrested 218 people in the state capital, Melbourne, and issued 236 fines, as well as kept 3 people in custody for assaulting police. Police in New South Wales, in the meantime, said they charged 47 people with breaching public health orders or resisting arrest, among other offences, and issued more than 260 fines. The vast majority of the 894 cases reported across Australia on Saturday were found in Sydney, the epicentre of the Delta variant-fuelled outbreak. Actions from the Super League, sports, coming up next. Sport Super League, 3 matches were played Saturday night. PJ City lost to Johor Darul Takzim JDT 2-0, while Selangor beat Perak 3-0. At the Sultan Mizan Zainal Abidin Stadium, Kedah beat Terengganu 2-1. Rabi Ataya opened the scoring for the Red Eagles in the 45th minute. Shazwan Zainal slotted in Kedah's second 5 minutes into the second half before David Silva claimed what turned out to be a consolation for Terengganu in the 70th minute. Still on football, Leo Sierra scored a hat-trick as Yokohama F. Marinos continued their recent resurgence with a 5-0 win over Vegalta Sendai at home on Saturday. Marinos took the lead through Sierra in the 25th minute at the Mitsuzawa Stadium. Sierra doubled the lead in the 62nd minute, and Marcos Jr. made it 3-0 5 minutes later. Sierra scored his hat-trick in the 70th minute before Jonah Mano completed the rout in the 94th minute. The win puts Kevin Muscat's Chargers on 59 points, just 4 points behind leaders Kawasaki Frontale, who drew 1-1 with Sanfrecce Hiroshima. As we wrap up Nightline this time around, let's take a look at an underwater archaeological park near Naples, where divers can explore ruins of palaces and domed bathhouses built for emperors. With that, I'm Muhammed Hamdan. Thank you for watching and stay safe, Malaysia.